Madam Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity to speak to the House. I believe that a nation's greatest resource is its people, especially young people. My constituents has a population of 2.8 million people. 30% of that are young people, which equals to 840,000 youths. 30% of that 840,000 youths are unattached youths. What do I mean by this? Those are youths that are not employed. They are not in any school. They are not participating in any training programs. Based on recent crime statistics, we have seen where youths at the age of 16 to 24 are involved in major crimes, which is 49.4% of major crimes youths from 16 to 24 are involved in. 98.7% of that 49.7 represents males. Homicidal violence is a leading social problem within which 77% of which are gun violence. These activities are generally male on male, youth and youth, and poor on poor killing. Females are vulnerable to sexual exploitation and adolescent pregnancies. The culture of granny or sugar daddy is our youth economic realities and their social survival strategies. This results in an inability to negotiate condom use, which leads to teenage pregnancy, HIV, and STI infection, which often go untreated, among other social and economic problems that we face. Thus, the issues affecting our nation surpass the issue as to where we will get the money from. Based on the issues presented, the government has to spend money on the health care, as there are mothers who are having children and they can't afford the health care currently, so the government has to provide the finances for that health care currently. We have to provide vaccination for STIs and HIV and other diseases. We have to provide vaccination also for these children whose mother can't afford the necessary health care. We also have to spend money on security and defenses. So the government then has to pour a lot of resources in policing since crime is on a rampant. We have to invest in prisons to house these criminals and to provide means of rehabilitating those criminals. The court system takes up a lot of finances because justice is for all. It is my view that we shift the focus. Rather than waiting until the young persons die or becoming parents while needing a parent themselves, or finding themselves at the wrong end of the law, we should fix the problem. A true businessman knows how to take risk, as he hopes to get a worthwhile benefit in the future. Madam Speaker, the opposition mocks our vision, a vision that will lead to prosperity. A part of this vision, Madam Speaker, is the bill tabled today. In order for a prosperous tomorrow, we, the government, has decided to bet on this bill, as it will aid in the reduction of social issues that currently plague our society. It will have a ripple effect in that companies will see customers exercise choice in favor of those who participate in this program. The level of unemployment among our young people will decrease. Poverty will decrease as more income will penetrate in family household. The government will benefit from income tax, GCT, and corporate revenues that come from this program. The bill will allow for innovation and creativity within the workplace. This is as a result of the young people because they will bring innovation, flexibility, high energy, and an understanding of the emerging technologies to the workplace, which will then immerse within our society. Madam Speaker, the bill is the vision of tomorrow. Progressive youth, the Progressive Party, will lead to prosperity.
Thank you, Member. Mark Munich.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And firstly, I commend my colleague, the Minister for Social Development, for introducing this bill to the House. What I see in this bill comprises of a few aspects, and these are crucial to around our young people. Reducing unemployment, providing jobs for our youth, and importantly, investing in our young people, which is clear that this opposition doesn't support. Madam Speaker, this government took to the election that investing in our young people to ensure that our youth, our future leaders, have the best start in life by having the opportunity to access to those opportunities to gain employment as an apprentice or an intern. Madam Speaker, for this opposition to oppose our plans, what we'd introduced to the House, would be to deny the positive futures of our young leaders of tomorrow the opportunity to be employed and to gain exposure in the workplace and ultimately to be employed. Madam Speaker, within my community, I draw an emphasis on how important this bill is, particularly with young Indigenous men who are more likely to go to jail than go to university or be employed, which I certainly find is unacceptable, and this needs to stop. Madam Speaker, I call on this opposition and the government to support this bill and importantly support the futures of our young people and our young futures of tomorrow, because this is a very important issue and that we need to address this through this bill. I commend the bill. Thank you.
Sunil Pickering.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to first declare to the government that we are not here to oppose the plans that you have set before us. We are simply asking one question: how? How will you implement, how will you fund, how will you establish the things that you have laid before this House? I want to speak to the bill in general, because from what I have seen, this bill is not comprehensive. The bill speaks to implementing apprenticeship and internship programs. However, the bill does not speak to training and educating these young people to be qualified for these positions that they will fill at the different levels of employment. Madam Speaker, I realize that the government's vision for educating and for training is simply for post-secondary education to help to reduce unemployment in youth. However, I will speak on behalf of the Caribbean, where we have unemployed youth who did not get the opportunity to finish secondary education. These unemployed youth who did not finish secondary education add to the unemployment rate of their respective jurisdictions. How then is the government going to educate and train those that did not get to finish their high school or their secondary education? How will the government now train them, educate them, qualify them for this internship and this apprenticeship program? There is nothing wrong with what you have laid here in terms of principle, but we want to know how. This is just a skeleton. We don't need skeletons. We need actions. We need plans. We need tangible things that we can go to the people and say the government is willing to implement this by this process. There is no process. There is just words on paper. Please, Minister of Education, enlighten me as to how you will educate not just the post-secondary, but those who did not get to finish their secondary education. How?
Please take your seat. Someone has risen on point of order.
Thank you.
Jordan Kelly.
Madam Speaker, the opposition member has referred to us as you. and I understand that is out of line with the order of proceedings.
Thank you. Please direct your remarks through the chair. Please continue.
Well, it is good to see that the government is listening to what I'm saying and realizing. So my apologies to the government. Madam Speaker, the government has laid before us a bill that is not comprehensive, as I said before. It is not inclusive of all jurisdictions of the Commonwealth. And I would plainly say that the government should take this bill, take it back into caucus, make the relevant changes, and bring it back to this honorable house that we can deliberate and debate properly as to a comprehensive bill to not only just implement programs of apprenticeship and internship, but educate the young people who are going to take these programs, train them, qualify them to not only enter the programs, but capitalize on the opportunities that are given unto them. And I speak to the Minister of Education, please take into consideration that the bulk of unemployed youth in the Commonwealth are those that did not get to finish their secondary education. So while we look at post-secondary education, bear in mind that the unemployed youth who do not have secondary education needs the government's help as well. Don't be partial in your deliverance of help. Help all or help none.
Erin Macaulay.
Today I rise to speak about youth unemployment and why I do believe that it's vital that we tackle it. Being unemployed is a stressful life event that directly reduces an individual's well-being. Youth unemployment results in a range of both short-term and long-term costs, not only for the individual concerned, but also for their families, dependents, and for the wider society and public purse. Unemployed while being young, especially for long durations, causes permanent scars rather than temporary blemishes. For our young, a spell of unemployment does not end with that spell. It raises the probability of being unemployed in later years and more likely for individuals to become dependent on the state rather than themselves. Unemployment increases mental stresses, malnutrition, low self-esteem, and increases the risk of depression. Most worrying, being unemployed while a youth is you're at higher risk of becoming suicidal or homeless. I say it often and I say it again, but our youth of this country is not just the future, but they're presently affected. So this is why it's vital that the government get their plans right and in action quickly rather than later. But I want to use the UK as an example of where the government should not be looking to for advice or following from. Because if you're a young person in the UK and you're under 25, then you're not paid the same wage as your adult counterparts, despite working the same hours in the same job. It creates tensions amongst ages and increases exploitation among young workers. The cost of living does not change because a person is under 25. The price of bread and milk does not change because a person is under 25. Between the ages of 16 to 25 in the UK, you can be married, have a child, have a car, and a house of your own to sustain. In the UK, by law, at 16, you're an adult, yet paid like a child. So I hope the government will take into consideration, when proposing this bill, the worries and not to look to the UK for any advice on youth unemployment and discrimination against wages. We in these benches want our young people to flourish, to be strivers, not skivers, and I hope the government take this into consideration.
Madam Speaker, I rise to speak on the Youth Apprenticeship and Internship Act. This bill does have merit, and of course, The opposition, the party of employment and business, will not therefore stand in the road as a roadblock for this bill and what it plans to implement. We are the party of job creation. We are the party of business and enterprise. However, it isn't the role of government to dictate and direct, or perhaps monopoly, if you like, society in an effort to stimulate our economy. However, it seems that it is the plan, and actually a plan that this government has, that it is hell-bent on pushing forward with this plan to stimulate the economy by creating jobs for young people, by adopting and mirroring policies, those that are akin to countries like China, North Korea and Cuba. One where the goalposts are determined by this government. And I think that the government has been to far too many country fairs where everyone wins a prize, because that's what this government seems to think when it comes to setting benchmarks and setting targets. Resting the responsibility with the minister, setting a target that they themselves... Don't shake your head, because that's what you're actually doing. Your bill actually says that the minister will be setting the targets. Exactly. The minister will be setting the targets, determining the success for the application of the policy. And we are yet to see the government's plans as to what the parameters are for these targets. And it has been cited many times today by members of the government that unemployment is at 6% and forecast to rise. That is a very worrying figure and a trend that I shudder to think about further. Record high unemployment that this country cannot afford. So I put it to the government. If you smoke cigarettes, one a day, a packet a day, you'll no doubt get cancer. Changing the brand of cigarettes, however, isn't the solution. You will still get cancer. Stopping the habit is. Perhaps that's something that this government needs to recognise. We can't continue to create programs based on fantasy targets, and this government needs to change its habits. Otherwise, old habits will certainly die hard. And again, reiterating the opposition's in-principle support for job creation and stimulating the economy and promoting jobs and employing young people, we do support the premise of the bill. However, I want to suggest that the government, rather than relying on employers, following the hapless Minister for Social Development on Twitter and social media for updates on the program, perhaps they might like to consider consulting with business, meeting with youth workers, conducting roundtables. As the Minister for Health so often and eloquently says, we will consult with the people. However, this bill does not in any way indicate consultation will take place with business and the people that are actually going to be employing the people who are going to be building the economy for Commonwealth land. Yeah, that's exactly right, member of the government. It is shame on your government.
Honourable member, you will member will direct his remarks through the chair.
I apologise, Madam Speaker. Shame on the member, Madam Speaker. The government needs the advice and they need the consultation of key stakeholders to determine and to make this bill, which again in principle is good, to make it better. Because these people, the people that they should be consulting with, they represent those that are going to be employed, those that, as my honourable colleague said, are without jobs and are without the dignity of employment. However, this government tells us that they represent the people who voted them in. However, well, that's exactly, yes, you tell us that you represent the people that you... Sorry,
Member, when a point of order is called, must take a seat. Point of order.
Madam Speaker, just referring back to the standing orders, point number 8, referring to the government members as you. Thank you.
Thank you. And the member is so directed to direct his remarks through the chair.
Madam Speaker, additionally, this government appears to be on a spending spree. And I have no hesitation in saying that. A spending spree like a drunken sailor or a child in a candy shop on payday. Well, not that they get paid because they don't have jobs. But I think that this government continues to have a problem with throwing money at every problem that it encounters. And the problem that we continue to see is that this government does not have the funds or the ability to pay for the programs that they wish to put in place. And I think that we continue to hear time after time that this government is working on a plan or working on plans. There are so many plans and important documents, the filing room must be full to the brim with papers and trees. However, I think if we have a closer look at the Honourable Member for Wales, I think she's the Minister for Climate Change, is that correct? Yes. If we have a look at the climate change policy of the government, it gives us a clear indicator as to how this government will fund this program. Again, it's a plan, but a plan that I think is deceitful and one that tricks the people that they, again, purport to represent. The government has a policy in place in regard to tackling climate change where it will increase taxes and pay for government expenditure by placing a carbon tax on the people. Is this the same way that this government will fund the Employment and Apprenticeship Bill? Increasing taxes.
Member, take his seat. Thank you. Janae Whitaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. In regards to the bill, I have noticed that government says that they would establish a Commonwealth apprenticeship fund, has a grant for these employers who would hire the youth and train them so they can get the experience they need and qualification needs so they can further better themselves and improve themselves. Now, my question is that I don't think that government should take this fund and take the burden of completely funding this program as a whole. The reason being is that it's both private sector and public sector that provides employment, that implies employment for our youth. And it is both the public sector and the private sector responsibility to better our youth so that they can push themselves forward to become independent citizens of our society. Now, my comment is that it should be both the private section along with the employers who will also pay for this program, because yes, the government is trying to put forward this bill, whereas they're providing youth with what they need to get and for themselves, but it's both public sector responsibility and private sector responsibility as to what happens to our youth. And as being a youth, I do say this is a beneficial idea because it is an opening for students to get into the workforce and to get the experience that they need so they can further themselves and better themselves so that they can become employable. Thank you.
Thank you, Member. Seeing no further speakers, Madam Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm very pleased to rise and express my support for the Youth Apprenticeship and Internship Act. I'm equally pleased to note that several members of the opposition have expressed their support in principle of this bill. Thank you. It is interesting, Madam Speaker, that the opposition contends that the government has no plans and has taken no action, yet it also contends that this government appears to be throwing money at everything. I suggest that the opposition picks one coherent argument and runs with it. This government puts the interests of families and youth at the centre of the work that we do in this Legislative Assembly. This bill is our first step to address challenges faced by youth in today's job market, challenges left behind by the previous government's ill-considered policies. It establishes programs and initiatives which both create opportunities for youth to enter the workforce and incentivizes industry to partner with government and open their doors to an eager and capable demographic. This bill sets tangible and measurable targets for reduction in rates of youth unemployment. The future of Commonwealth land relies so heavily on its youth. This bill is a clear step, a clear action by this government to invest in its people, to invest in a sustainable future, and to invest in progress for a better Commonwealth land. I move adjournment of this debate, Madam Speaker.
Honourable members, you've heard the question. All those in favour? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried. Government House Leader.
Madam Speaker, with leave, I call a second reading of the Commonwealth Renaming Act.
Honourable members, shall leave be granted? Please proceed.
Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for providing me the opportunity to speak on this issue once again, and thank you to all my fellow youth parliamentarians for once again granting me this opportunity to speak to you. I wish to reiterate a couple of the previous points that I outlined beforehand. The cultivation of a national identity is vital to the sustenance of a nation. Without a firm national identity, without a firm laying out of principles that a nation can stand for, it is difficult to maintain national cohesion. We, as a people of the Commonwealth, this concept of the Commonwealth is a concept that is steeped in the very idea of getting beyond the traumas of colonialism, to overcoming a lot of heritage that is claimed to be heritage, but only in name. In actuality, it represents oppressions of millions of people over centuries, all throughout the world. We, as the Commonwealth, are moving past the stage of the empire, but of course, the Commonwealth land, in and of itself, represents a hearkening to British imperial systems. And we wish to amend that with this act. The fact is, while no doubt this is a state drawing its heritage from various highly diverse areas throughout the world, the Commonwealth, the name Commonwealth land is still inextricably associated with Europeanism. And it's vitally important for us as a nation to move beyond this paradigm, this very limited Eurocentric paradigm, and to embrace the true diversity that is represented here in this chamber. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, member. Skylos here.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And to be honest, I was a little shocked when I received a bill written by hand. And if that speaks to anything from the plans, I'm a little concerned, Madam Speaker. But just the details are the details. And I am frankly appalled, Madam Speaker, that this government is trying to distract the good citizens of Commonwealth land from the real problems our citizens are facing. They're pulling these ideas out of their back pocket. Is it on a point of order?
Are you rising on point of order?
Madam Speaker, if the honourable member can please refer to the bill as it was introduced into the Parliament, which is a private member's bill, not as a government bill. Thank you.
Mr. Lossier.
I never referred to the bill as a government bill. I referred to this government trying to push through the bill. The bill is sponsored by a government member. So I never said this is a government bill. So...
Through the chair.
Through the chair, Madam Speaker. My apologies. Continuing, this bill is a distraction from the fault, to pull the public's attention away from the fault of this government, Madam Speaker. This government never mentioned, this party, they never mentioned this in their platform. This is an idea that they've pulled out of thin air. Our plans aren't working. What shall we do? Let's divide our citizens, create a wedge between our good citizens of Commonwealth land. I find it shameful, Madam Speaker, absolutely shameful. The government, this Parliament, has no mandate to introduce these changes unilaterally. It will cost millions of dollars, Madam Speaker. This is a frivolous use of taxpayers' dollars. If the government is so serious about this issue, perhaps, Madam Speaker, they could put it forward at the next election in tandem with our national elections. A plebiscite costs millions of dollars. And we have those every 4 years for a reason. Why does this government plan on forcing this through our House? It's unacceptable. It is a thwart to our democratic process. It is insult to our citizens. This is a frivolous use of taxpayers' dollars, which we have come to expect from this irresponsible government, Madam Speaker. I am ashamed. But all this aside, why does this government want to spend time campaigning on a plebiscite, implementing a plebiscite? These are very complicated. Our country is facing so many issues: rising sea levels, growing unemployment, longer wait lines in the hospitals, inaccessible education. And to sum this all up, the government says, we have a plan. We have a plan. We're going to throw money in the air and hope it sticks to walls and makes all our plans come together. That's not how economics work. That is not how economics work. I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, but this government is bent on imposing unilateral actions onto our citizens, forcing our citizens to cough up more money from their tax dollars to pay for this unwarranted, uncampaigned, unnecessary referendum or plebiscite, Madam Speaker. there's a perfect opportunity to have this plebiscite. It's at the next election. If the government is so confident that this is what the citizens want, why don't you campaign on it in the next election and see what they have to say when they go to the polls to vote for you and changing our national identity?
Through the chair.
Through the chair.
Thank you.
Wait, really, I'm trying. This government is trying to divide the citizens of Commonwealth land. It's shameful. It's frivolous. It's frankly embarrassing, Madam Speaker. This plebiscite will make us the laughingstock of this world. These people will look at us and they'll say, oh, these fools spending millions of dollars on a plebiscite right after an election, that they didn't campaign on this idea. It's a distraction. It is deceitful to the public. It is unacceptable on so many levels. It's making my blood pressure rise. It's a danger to my health as a member of this chamber. I don't know what to say anymore.
Josh Tardif.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to thank the member for his emotional response to the bill, which was, by the way, a private member's bill. As he referred to the government as a sponsor, I would like to stand myself as a private member and a sponsor of this bill. This bill was designed to unify and bring together Commonwealth landers. This bill, Your Honor, was designed with the purpose of renaming the Commonwealth land as it was introduced by my good friend, Mr. Sheldon Paul. Well, excuse me, Your Honor, but that can be blamed on the scribe and not the government or the introducer of the bill itself. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to request that I can speak here. This act was designed and should be supported by all members of Parliament, as we are the elected representatives of the people of what we refer to now as Commonwealth land. This act was designed to provide us with the opportunity to, as representatives, understand who we are, where we come from, what it is that we represent. Your Honor, we come from many different places with many different values. However, the idea of Commonwealth land was introduced to us. Can anybody here on the floor provide me with the name of who it was that named Commonwealth land? This act was designed to create a space for our fellow citizens to help us understand what it means to be a member of Commonwealth land. As a member of our elected progressive government, I commemorate my fellow members for providing us with the foresight and integral opportunity to help us unify with an understanding of who we are and what we stand for. I ask my peers, who named Commonwealth land? Our founders. Who are our founders? Because I will remind you that the idea of Commonwealth land is steeped in colonial vernacular. We are a diverse, if you would refer to the statistics, we are a diverse nation with about a quarter of our population identifying as visible minorities. This act, Your Honor, was designed to allow us to come together, to understand who we are and what our purpose is here. This act was designed to create a national identity. This act is designed to Is there another member that would like the floor? Thank you, Your Honor. I want to leave on this question. Who named Commonwealth land? Was it the people of Commonwealth land? Was it their elected representatives? No. This act was designed to create a space for the people of Commonwealth land to provide us with the knowledge of who we represent. It's not divisive. It's not fragmentating anybody. The only fragmentation that is happening right now is coming through this emotional response by somebody who did not obviously read the bill. Thank you, Your Honor.
Jordan Kelly.
Madam Speaker, thank you. I rise to let the honourable member know across the way there that thankfully under our health policies that you're well covered in our public healthcare system now that we have government. Our health minister is doing great things for public health, and I'm sure that you're going to be well looked after. Madam Speaker, Parliament is a wonderful thing. It's where people can come together and they can introduce legislation that they are passionate about. It's a time where people can debate certain things, where they can get to know their fellow colleagues, get to know people from right around Commonwealth land. This private members bill is not something pursued by the government. It's not something pursued by the cabinet. It's been introduced by a member, and we're bringing it to the floor to debate it. This is what this is. This is a space for debate. This is a space for us to discuss this matter. It's not something that we're supporting. It's not something that we're pushing. We're not driving a wedge between the people. We're here to create a place for discussion, a place where we can understand more about what it would mean to rename this place, what it would mean for the people, the 25% that have an Indigenous or cultural link to this land, what it would mean for the millions of people that would be benefited by a name change for this nation. Madam Speaker, a private members bill has been designed to bring to this floor for us to debate. It's been designed so we can discuss, learn more, understand exactly what Commonwealth land means, and understand exactly what it would mean to change the name. Madam Speaker, as our colleagues over the way pointed out yesterday, people have a lot of power. And fortunately for us, we managed to capture that just recently. And for this, we want to capture the power and the understanding of the people, understand what they want out of this nation. As my learned friend over the way called, Commonwealth land was named by our founders. But our founders are no longer here, so why should we stick to the heritage that they have left when we can proceed with progress as our party states? Madam Speaker, the people have the power. The elected representatives have the power. This is a space for us to discuss this private members bill, to discuss reforming our identity, to recognise progress and unify our nation. Thank you.
Erin McCauley?
Madam Speaker, a change in the name of the country does not put food on the table. It does not provide jobs. It does not provide employment or lift people out of poverty. Policy and actions put food on the table, not changing the name of the country.
Mr. Lynch?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to reply to the Act, the Commonwealth Renaming Act, and personally, coming from a historical background, I believe that the honourable member, the private member in his capacity, what he's attempting to achieve is honourable, is brave, in light of historical inaccuracies, historical tragedies that have occurred among people from different cultures clashing. But, Madam Speaker, I believe that what would be more brave, more honourable, is to carry all of our energy into creating a more fair and just society for all. As time moves on, I believe that the visible minorities and other individuals within the society, that they'll be more willing to have more food on their tables, to have the cost of housing being lowered, to have a better cost of living than to simply have a change of the name, Madam Speaker. I believe that being wealthier, that being prouder and more economically viable within the global village would be a greater healing than simply a name change, Madam Speaker. It is brave and it is honourable, but at this time it is a bit misguided. When these things are taken care of, when everyone can access better education, better health care, when individuals can be able to go into the economy to become businessmen and women and to move away the bureaucracy, when that day comes, when all in Commonwealth land can rise up and say that they are fair and equal treatment here, until that day comes, we must remain as Commonwealth land. Thank you very much.
And noting the hour, if the previous speaker would adjourn debate. Move adjournment of the debate?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Excellent. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion is carried. Government House Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House now adjourn.
Honourable members, you've heard the question. All those in favour? Opposed? Motion is carried. This House that is rising stands adjourned until 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Just a couple of announcements before you go for lunch.